Welcome, my dear students, to our guidelines for the graduation project. And we will present the following topics in our graduation project. We will start with the cover page. Okay. On the left side, this is the FMI logo, and in the right side, we talk about the Helwan University logo. The title for project, Economic and Financial Analysis 4, you will write the name of the corporate or the case study. Prepared by student name, you will write student name in the group and faculty ID. And the next, we talk about the supervisor name and signature. Group code, you will obtain the group code from the administration team. This is the cover page. And the next, when we talk about the first requirement in our graduation project, this is corporate profile. When you select the corporate, you need to fill the following template. Number one, name, corporate formal name, date, and representative. When we talk about the president or the person who act as a representative for this corporate, number of employees and the head office and the major business area for this corporate or the sector. The second, or when we talk about the ISIN, which stands for International Securities Identification Number. So when we talk about the share or the stock for this corporate, we talk about code for this stock or this share. Two codes when we talk about ISIN and Reuters. Current total shares and capital, and the stock bar value and email and telephone. This is the first one or the first section, corporate profile. What about the second section? We will analyze the macroeconomic prospects at more than one level. So we will start with global level. What about the global environment which affect the business in our economy, in Egyptian economy, or in the regional level or in the global level? So in this section, you need to analyze the following points, like world real GDP growth rate. We talk about historical data, so you need to analyze or discover the trend for real GDP growth rate this year and the last years, and what about forecasting for the next years. What about the forecasting and the trend for global trade, global inflation, and growth? In this case, the economic growth, we will compare between growth in advanced economies and in emerging markets. And in this case, we talk about the global risk. How we can find the available information or data for our section 1. We will go to the recommended resources or recommended sources. Number 1, the report Global Economic Prospects, the publisher World Bank. So click on this link. This is the report, okay, Global Economic Prospects, and this is download. We will download. What about you need for report or GDP growth or the charts? You can use the for report or the GDP growth data. Okay, if we select for report, this is the report you can use in our graduation project in this section. Okay, table of contents. We need some data about real GDP growth rate. So we can start from this point. What about our global outlook? Global outlook, in this case, we estimate that the growth rate equal 5.5%. This is as a global. So we can use tables and figures to explain more details. So this is the historical data, okay? Real GDP at a percent. In the world, for example, in our table, the percent equal 2.6% in the year 2019, declined to negative 3.4 in the year 2020. Forecasting for the year 2021, or estimated for the year 2021, recovered by 5.5%. What about forecasting? Forecasting for the year 2022 and 2023, 4.1 and 3.2. Okay, so this is this is real GDP for the years. This is when we talk about 2019 and 2020, this is the past years or the last years. 2021, we talk about estimated. 2022 and 23, this is forecasting, forecasting. So this is for the world. So if you need to write, or if you can write or analyze this problem as this is fluctuation in the real GDP for the world. What about advanced economies like USA and Euro and Japan? The same trend, negative in 2020, but different values. Recovered in 2021, okay, and 2022 forecasting declined to 3.8. What about emerging markets? What about individual economies? So this is the first table we need in our report. So you can write or analyze the data about growth rate. You will select a percent of growth rate as we see in this report. Back to our report, okay. Another source you need to discover to write this section: World Economic Outlook and the publisher IMF. Okay, you will click IMF. This is the report, World Economic Report. Okay, World Economic Report, and this is the report you need. For report, open file, World Economic Update. Okay, so at the same point we can talk about inflation. What about the trend for inflation? What about the table? Okay, for the world output, the same for developed, for emerging markets, and so on. The same when we talk about global trade. In this report, we investigate the trend in the global trade. So in summary, we will use two reports in this section from the World Bank and the IMF. Back to our graduation project. In this section, you can use tables and figures with your analysis. There is no problem in your analysis to use tables and figures. We're still in this section number 2, but we will talk about the regional level. Regional level, we mentioned the level or the region maybe in Middle East and in the countries. So we talk about the countries neighbor for Egypt. Okay, so this is the regional economic outlook. We will use this source, regional economic outlook in IMF. You can use the full report, okay, or statistical appendix. For report or statistical appendix. So this is the statistical appendix. We need to compare between the performance for Egypt, okay, and the Middle East. For example, Egypt. What about this percent? This is real GDP gross for Egypt. In the year, this is the average from the year 2000 to 2017, equal 4.3. What about the performance for the year 2019? 5.3. For the year 2019, 5.6. So this is the trend upward increased. But in the year 2020, yes, this is decreased in the real GDP growth rate, but still positive, 3.6. So in this case, we can compare between the performance for real GDP for Egypt in this year 2020, 3.6 as a positive, with the average in emerging market and Middle East equal negative 0.6. So this is declining in the economy. What about projections in the year 2021? Yes, the growth rate for Egypt 2.5, but still greater than the average for emerging market and Middle East. What about forecasting for the year 2022? Yes, this is still Egypt 5.7%, but greater than the average. So we will select each variable and we will compare between the performance for Egypt and the emerging market and middle income countries. For real GDP, for inflation, for nominal GDP. So we will focus on the comparison between Egyptian economy and the regional level. Back to our graduation project. So all available data like real GDP growth rate, we will compare between the region and Egypt. Inflation in the region and Egypt. General government fiscal balance, the same, and total government gross debt. So the next, we're still in section number 2, but we will talk about the national level. The national level, we mentioned the Egyptian economy. National level, we mentioned the Egyptian economy. What do you know? So in section number 2, this is very important. In section number 2, global level, we need to write from 2 to 3 pages. In the regional level, maybe from 4 to 5 pages. In national level, or in this Egyptian performance or Egyptian economy performance, we talk about from 2 to 3 pages as a round. We need overview of the Egyptian economy, recent overview, and the capital ratios and return on assets and non-performing loans. So we mentioned the banking sector and financial sector. What about our sources? The same, another report, okay, another report, Middle East and Central Asia, okay. We will talk the same report we compare between Egypt, and we will focus on the values in Egypt. Appendix, Egypt. Consumer price inflation for Egypt. and the next. Current account, gross official reserves, all data you need available in this report. So this is for capital, yes. Capital ratio. Capital ratio in Egypt. Where is Egypt? Capital ratio percent of risk-weighted assets. In Egypt, in the year 17, 15.2, 15.7, 15.6. Okay, we will do the same, compare the values for Egypt, okay, and maybe for another countries in our group, maybe for Morocco, maybe for Pakistan, maybe for Jordan, okay, maybe for Armenia, and maybe for any other country in our category. So the data available about the capital in Egypt. What about the next? Next value, return on assets. What about return on assets? Pre-tax. Return on assets pre-tax. The same. We will compare between the trend from the year 2017, the return on assets equal 2%, and 1.5 declined and still constant from the year 2018, okay, and declined to 1.4 in 2019, and increased again since the year 2020. Okay, this is a return on assets. So all available data or required data like capital, like return on assets, like non-performing loans, okay, available in this report, and we can use the next source for the World Bank. Click World Bank. This World Bank talk about the Egyptian macroeconomic environment and analyze the Egyptian economy, performance and strategy and results. Okay, you can use on your analyze. Can use in your analysis. Okay. Back to our graduation project. So in general, in section number 2, we will depend on the IMF and World Bank, and we will complete our sections in the next videos. Thank you.